Hello everyone, welcome back to GED. Today we are doing a quick guide with a no BS about the blood decay in the BFA pre-patch and beyond. So, not a lot has changed with blood decay. There's a few minor tweaks here and there, but we'll get into that a little bit later. As for right now, at the beginning of all my guides, I'm going to reiterate something that everyone should be following, and you should be using weak auras to adjust every cooldown for your class, have it readily available, have it readily visible, because it's very important to know your cooldowns, see what's going on in terms of your energy, power, whatever you're using on any class you play. As you can see here for my class, DK, I have my runes as this green fire, I have consumption here, asphyxiate, and if I go over here and go into combat, you're going to see the rest of my graphical indicators pop up. Here I have my dancing rune weapon on the spinny swirl. I have death and decay as this huge eye of Sauron. And then I have two red flames which are equal to my blood boil procs. If I start using stuff, you'll see them go away. It's very simple to use, very intuitive because I know what's off cooldown, what's available when it's available. Alright, so next up we're just going to take a quick view at our spellbook, see what we've lost, what we've gained. Really for blood decay, not a lot has changed. Like I said before, we still have AMS, we still have asphyxiate through it, I guess base. Blood just gets asphyxiate as base instead of a talent, like Unholy and Frost. Blood Boil is your AoE, basically damage dealer, it puts your dot on your targets. 2 charges, same as usual. These are both talents that I have. Dancing Rune Weapon, it's basically the same. I think the cooldown kind of got adjusted from Legion due to the loss of our artifact talent. Your Taunt, your Death and Decay, which is very important because while you're in your Death and Decay, your Heart Strike will hit 3 additional targets, so you're getting that AoE cleave damage to keep aggro on you. Death Gate sends you home. Death Grip, it's on a lower cooldown than most specs. Blood, of course, gets the 15-second cooldown instead of the 25. Death Strike will be your primary rune spender rune energy spender because it's your heal, it's your shield, it's the bread and butter of blood decay. Death's Advance, Blood Spec no longer has Wraith Walk, so Death's Advance is going to be pretty much your only movement ability. Gore Fiends, Death's Caress, all the same. Heart Strike, still basically the same. Icebound Fortitude, your damage reduction cooldown. Marrow Rend, stacking your Bone Shields. Bone Shields now no longer by default give you health or any scaling stuff, so I mean, we'll check out the talents later, but Bone Shield is pretty much just Bone Shield now. It doesn't really do much if you have more or less charges. Mind Freeze, you're basically Silence. Raise, Path of Frost, Rune Forge, Vampiric Blood. Vampiric Blood cooldown got slightly adjusted, I believe, and it's not as strong. Well, it's still 30%, so it's still pretty strong. Crimson Scourge, very important to blood decays. When you're auto-attacking, you have a chance to get a free Death and Decay. Death and Decay, just awesome. Being in Death and Decay means you're hitting more targets, of course, with your cleave damage. We still have our Mastery Bone Shield, which gives us an absorb every time we Death Strike. Again, Death Strike is your bread and butter. Don't forget that. Pale Horse and Veteran. Veteran now just gives us stamina and armor. I think before it was majorly just stamina, but now it's doing armor as well. So that's about it for the spellbook. Let's jump into the talents. And of course I have to move the talents over so you can see them. Alright, so this is going to be quick and easy, no BS here. Heartbreaker, in your first row we have Heartbreaker. Heart Strike gets 2 additional runic power per hit. Blood Drinker is now a talent. Basically you're draining life from the target at the cost of 1 rune and a little bit of channel time. Rune Strike, you strike pretty hard and its cooldown is reduced every 1 second for every rune you spend. It also generates 1 rune, 2 charges, 1 minute cooldown. I'm going to say it right now, guys. I don't like Rune Strike. I don't like it at all. It's too much of a cooldown. Like, once you get into your rotation and you use Rune Strike a couple of times, it just kind of like falls out of your rotation, and then you're just waiting for it to come off cooldown. And it can be a long time, even with the reduction in rune spending. Heartbreaker is okay. It's good just to get more runic power for death strikes, but I don't like using it because if you're soloing one target, it's kind of wasted. It's more like an AoE talent. My preferred talent is Blood Drinker, because there will always be times in every fight where you need a little extra healing, where you're a little bit too far away from a target and you need to be doing something to regen your health or do damage. And Blood Drinker does massive damage, and it heals you pretty dang well. Blood Drinker, I just love it. I love the talent. 57 talents. Rapid Decomposition. Your Blood Plague and Death and Decay deal damage 15% more often. This is okay. It helps you heal throughout your Blood Plague, and of course Death and Decay. Doing extra damage helps hold aggro. Hemostasis. Each enemy hit by Blood Boil increases the damage of your next Death Strike by 8%, stacking 5 times. This is really good in AoE situations. But Consumption. Strike all enemies in front of you with a hungering attack that deals physical damage and heals you 100% of that damage. My default choice, even though both of these choices are valid, I like Consumption because it falls so beautifully into my rotation. It's just always there for that little extra healing when you're doing AoE pulls, and it does a crap ton of damage, and damage is always good, especially in PvP. I have an artifact on right now, Soul of the Death Lord. It's giving me Foul Bulwark. Each charge of Bone Shield gives you maximum health by 1%. This is super good talent. Super. More health for blood decays means more healing per death strike, per whatever percentage you're healing at. Ossuary. When you have 5 Bone Shield charges, your death strike is reduced by 5 rune power, and you have 10 more rune power. It's okay, but you shouldn't be capping your rune power as a blood decay. You shouldn't be sitting on so much runic power. I don't think this is a valid talent. Tombstone. Consume 5 Bone Shield charges, and you get a big absorb based on how many you use. It's got a 1 minute cooldown, but in situations where you need just an extra burst of shielding, it can be good. By default, as artifacts will go away in BFA, you want Foul Bulwark all the time. More health, more health. It's just too good to pass up. More health means you live. Alright, next row, 60. Will of Necropolis. Damage taken below 35% is reduced by 35%. Garbage. Pure garbage. Anti-Magic Barrier reduces the cooldown of Anti-Magic Shell by 15 and increases its absorb. That's pretty good for a blood decay. This is the only spec I would say Anti-Magic Barrier is good, because you're the tank. You need to be surviving. You need those big anti-magic barriers that last a long time and just absorb crazy amounts of damage. Blood is also one of the few specs that can actually deal with magic damage just due to the anti-magic barrier. A lot of other tank specs can't do that, so I mean, kudos to Blood for even having that talent. Rune Tap. Okay, usually I don't have enough runes to use Rune Tap, but it does reduce all damage for 30% for 4 seconds, 2 charges. It's good, but you have to like save runes to use it, and I don't like sitting on runes trying to squeeze Rune Tap into burst windows. I like having a cooldown I can just use on the fly, and it makes me survive. 75. Grip of the Dead. Death and Decay reduces the movement speed of all enemies in the area by 90%. This is the one spec where this is amazing. Grip of the Dead is amazing on Blood Decay because you're dropping Death and Decay all the time because you're getting free procs of it with your autos. So that means mobs and players and whatever you're fighting cannot run away from you. They cannot. Tightening Grasp reduces the cooldown on Gorfiend's Grasp by 30 seconds. We don't use Gorfiend's enough to warrant this. I mean, it's good, but it's not warranted. Wraithwalk. This is where we kind of have to trade off. Grip of the Dead is far superior in my opinion because just that AoE slow is so good for catching up, for holding, for controlling the battle. Wraithwalk is good, but you gotta take Grip of the Dead in my opinion. It's too good to pass up. Okay, next up we have our 90 series talents. Voracious Death Strike gives you 15% leech for 6 seconds. It's good, it's very good. I would say this one is a toss-up with the others, but there are clearly two winners in this row. Bloodworms, your auto attacks have a chance to summon a Bloodworm. Bloodworms deal minor damage. In my opinion, it's not that minor of damage. Like, these things, they deal a pretty decent amount of damage, and damage helps you hold aggro. And apart from that, they also burst after 15 seconds, healing you 15% of your missing health. Not total health, missing health. Another caveat, if you drop below 50% of your health, they immediately burst and heal you. I like this talent, guys. I love having Bloodworms back. They're extra damage, they're extra healing, they're kind of like a fail-safe in a way, and they spawn pretty often. You have them up quite a lot. Mark of Blood, the final row, has place a mark of blood on your enemy for 15 seconds. The enemy's damaging auto attacks will also heal for 2% of your health. So basically, for 15 seconds, as an enemy hits you, it heals 2% of your max life. In my opinion, doesn't work. Doesn't work because you're taking damage, you're getting a little bit back, it's kind of negating a little, it's wishy-washy, it's just, also you're using your runic power, which kind of puts your death strikes out of rotation. No, don't do it. Voracious Strike, Bloodworms, you can choose, but I like Bloodworms because they're easy, they're simple, they work. Final row, you're 100. Purgatory. This is the same as in Legion. When you die, you're basically not dead for 3 seconds if you get healed in that time. Red Thirst reduces the cooldown on Vampiric Blood 1 second by every 10 runic power spent. Vampiric Blood is kind of like your big reduction cooldown of damage. You know, increases your health and increases your healing and absorbs. But this is not that good. 10 runic power is quite a lot of runic power just for 1 second. So, I mean, it could be better if they buffed it up to like 2 seconds or maybe have the runic power. Bone Storm changed a little bit. Now it's on a 1 minute cooldown and just consumes your 10 to 100 runic power. After that, you do damage in an AoE around you and you heal 3% of your maximum health every time it deals damage. This is kind of cool. It's kind of situational. If you have like big AoE pools and you use Bone Storm at the right moment, it can be crazy good, probably in Mythic Plus. But every other situation, like raiding single target bosses, not really that great because 1 minute cooldown, it's going to take all your runic power away. I would rather have a failsafe of Purgatory where you can't die if a healer is helping you. Our healing kind of got reduced a little bit on Death Strike. So that's pretty much it. Let's go over it really quick again. Blood Drinker for range, damage, healing. Consumption for damage and healing. Foul Bulwark for maximum health via Bone Shields, which is really, really good. Anti-Magic Barrier for magic negation, one of the few tanks that can actually do that. Grip of the Dead because you don't want anything to move away from you ever again. Bloodworms, a failsafe, and a little bit of extra damage just to hold aggro. I like it. You can choose. Purgatory, and that's it. You're good to go. Now, PvP talents for Blood, I know a lot of people don't play Blood in PvP, but Blood is notorious for being monstrous in PvP, literally unkillable with super healing and super damage. From my experience, the unkillable aspect is kind of going away for tanks, but let's get into PvP talents anyways. Your first talent here, Gladiator's Medallion or Adaptation. You don't want Relentless, just trust me. Gladiator's Medallion's your trinket, Adaptation's your auto trinket, but it's a little bit more finicky because it has to be over 5 seconds. I take Adaptation because I'm an orc, and orcs get a slight cooldown to CC anyways. Unholy Command will be your second talent. No ifs, ands, or buts. You want 2 charges of Death Grip because you want to be pulling everyone close to you all the time. Next one, Decomposing Aura. All enemies within 10 yards take decay damage of 3% of your health every 2 seconds, stacks 5 times. This is just, it's the best DK, all around DK PvP talent because damage is damage is damage. For your final talent, you can go hog wild. Like literally any of the other PvP talents could be amazing for blood DK, and they all work in situations, but me personally, I prefer Last Dance because Runic Weapon is your huge DPS cooldown. It helps you pull out that damage when you need it, when you gotta get someone dead immediately, and having it 50% cooldown, just fantastic. Okay guys, we're nearing the end of the guide here, and let's get into some of my key bindings and macros as I did with the other Unholy guide, and we'll just see how I kind of ease into the life of a Blood DK and make it easier for you. So first off, we have my basic attack, Marrow Rend. Marrow Rend does not really need to be macroed with anything, you can just leave it as it is, have it just sit there. And then also you have Heartstrike. Heartstrike also, you don't really need to macro it with anything. Just, you know, use it as a filler when you're not able to Marrow Rend. Death Grip, also no macro, don't need it. Death Grip can just be Death Grip. Now we have Gorfrien's Grasp. Gorfrien's Grasp is kind of different. Most people use Gorfrien's just on a target. I don't like that. I don't like using it on my target. I like pulling everything to me, and then once everything's aggroed on me, I like having some sort of cooldown to make sure I survive that massive pull of mobs into me. So here's the macro for my grip. I target myself. I cast Gorfrien's Grasp. I cast Icebound Fortitude. Yes, Icebound Fortitude, which is your reduction in damage by 30% for 8 seconds. Followed by clearing my target, because I don't want to stay targeted on me. I want to target the nearest enemy in order that I can attack them. Use Healthstone. I also like to pair this with Healthstones just because when you're doing that massive pull, usually you're a little bit damaged already, and it just helps you make a clean pull and survive everything that comes after you. So if I just go up here, I'll show you how it works. Hopefully this will work. Training dummies don't really like to be pulled. So I target a training dummy. I'm going to hit my macro. It targets me, it pulls, it pops my fortitude, and it also uses a Hellstone. We're all good to go. Alright, next, Death Strike. Death Strike doesn't need to be on a macro as with your other 3 basic attack abilities. Death and Decay. Now this is what you need as a Blood DK 100% of the time. You need a cast at cursor, Death and Decay. So wherever my mouse is, I just tap that button once, tap, and it drops that Death and Decay. You don't want to be moving it around trying to place it over here with that little reticle. You just want to drop it, be done. And once things are in that Death and Decay, they're slowed. So with the new talent, they are slowed and can't get out. Dancing Rune Weapon. This is just it's like your DPS slash minor defensive cooldown. So I like to just leave it by itself, leave it all alone, don't macro it. I use Blood Drinker, so Blood Drinker is by itself. Death's Caress, I don't know if anybody uses Death's Caress really, because there's no reason to use it when you're going to be gripping and using your Blood Boil. But I digress. Death's Advance, our new BFA movement talent. Leave it alone, use it, just solo, let it go. It's fun, it's nice, helps you avoid getting kited and all that jazz. Also, I use consumption, so I just leave consumption by itself. There's no real reason to use anything with consumption. But if you're an orc, like I am, eventually you might want to pair it with Blood Fury, because Blood Fury plus consumption, major damage. Or alternatively, pair your Blood Fury with Runic Weapon, because once you pop that Runic Weapon and you go Blood Fury, gonna do lots of damage. My last macro for Blood Decay is pretty important. This is basically my survival macro. Let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so I have a cast sequence with a reset of 10. I have Vampiric Blood and Anti-Magic Shell in a cast sequence macro. Both of these have a fairly low cooldown, and you might want to adjust Anti-Magic Shell before Vampiric Blood, now that Vampiric Blood doesn't get reduced by spending runic power by default. But anyways, if I tap this once, I pop my Vampiric Blood, and I also pop my Trinket. If I pop it again, there's my Magic Shell. I got my Magic Shell. It's one button. You can just cycle through your DPS cooldowns. Or sorry, defensive cooldowns. Helps you to survive. Helps you not be kind of waddling around trying to find your abilities. That's it. That's it for macros. The only other macro I would say have is a cast sequence for Asphyxiate and Mind Freeze, so you can chain CC someone like this. Asphyxiate, and then if they come out and try healing themselves, you got a Mind Freeze ready to go. Okay guys, now we come to the last part of the guide, of course, the rotation. And you guys are going to hate me when I show you the Blood Decay rotation, because it's a special thing. But anyways, this is going to assume that you are taking the Foul Bulwark talent, because Foul Bulwark, it means that you want to have as many Bone Shield charges as you can all the time. Without further ado, we walk up to the target. We drop a Death and Decay. We stack our Bone Shield. We stack our Bone Shield. Start dropping your Blood Boils. And then from here, you just go hog wild. You start using everything that's on cooldown. Rune Weapon. Stack more Bone Shield. Blood Boil. Drop another Death and Decay. Drop some Rune Power if you're damaged. Drop another Blood Boil. You really only have one priority as a Blood Decay, and that is use everything on cooldown. Like literally, you don't want anything on cooldown ever. You just want to start dropping. And the best thing about Blood Decay is that it's actually one of the DK specs where you never run out of buttons to press. I can Blood Drinker, I have Runic Power, I have Blood Boils respawning, I have more runes to spend, I'm at 10 charges, drop another Death and Decay. There's just so much you can be doing as a Blood Decay. It's kind of like an ADHD spec of tanking, and I'm sorry when I say that, but you just gotta use everything on cooldown. And with my talents that I showed you, you will always have abilities to use. You will have Death and Decay, you'll have Consumption, you'll have Blood Boils. Again, guys, you just want to be using on cooldown. One special thing to note, though, if you're raid tanking, you may want to let your Runic Power charge up a little bit, because you don't want to be wasting Death Strikes when you're at maximum health. You want to take a hit and then regen that with a Death Strike. That's pretty much it. Blood is super easy, super simple, does a lot of damage, can tank magic where most specs can't, and it's just all around good, guys. Enjoy, and good luck in your Blood Decay tanking.